Incoming transmission.
Helldivers, it's good to see you. I've got a task for you today. Command is sending in a bunch of new recruits. And to help them not get slaughtered out there on the battlefield, I need you to put together a demolition kit, a demolitionist build for them to work with. The name of the game? Explosives. What faction are we fighting? All of them. Get it done, and I'll see you on the ground. End transmission.
Bit of a rough drop there, Helldivers, but I'm glad you made it with me. Now, today, this is the first time we're doing like a Warbond specific build. And obviously, the one we're going to do is Democratic Detonation. So we're going to try to stick to all those primary weapons, or at least having the primary weapons as a flex pick, and kind of keeping in theme with the explosive nature of that Warbond. So we're going to go through the equipment. We got 3 primary weapons that we can talk about. Secondary, pretty locked in. Got a few picks with the armor, but then moving to the stratagems, we're going to stick again in that explosive category. So we'll go through those. We have some flex picks, and then we're going to move over to the overview section where it's going to work a little bit differently, because now we have 3 factions to fight, which means not every stratagem is like created equal against each of the factions. So in that section, we'll go through the bugs, the squids, the bots, and I'll kind of give my recommendation and my picks for basically the flex stratagems on which like kind of perform best for at least me. So again, there's just my recommendations, but just know, again, we're sticking to that explosive category, and we have a lot of different options that we can work with. So just remember, these are my picks. So let's go ahead and head to the VIP bunkin where I can sit down and we can go through this. So come. All right, and then sitting down, moving on to the equipment section here. So for the primary weapon, we have 3 choices basically from the Detonation Warbond. That is the Adjudicator, the Crossbow, and the Eruptor. Now, each one of those, I wouldn't say they're the easiest to use. There's a little bit of I would say, learning curve for them, especially for new players. The Adjudicator has a wicked kick, and also the magazine size leaves a lot to be desired, but it is very powerful. That medium penetration ammunition definitely covers basically every chaff, but you do have to, again, contend with the kick and the low magazine size. The crossbow, rate of fire, not great. Also, how many bolts you get in a magazine, also not great, but it's very powerful, one-handed, very superb overall. It's just, yeah, you got to kind of like adjust your play style to it. And then the Eruptor, kind of like a sniper, an explosive sniper. So just know that as well. The rate of fire is going to be very slow. And when we get to the overview section, I'll kind of give my recommendation on which primary weapon I like to use versus each faction, because they all don't perform exactly the same. But moving on to the secondary, of course, we have to go with the grenade pistol. Right? Explosives is the name of the game with this build, minus I guess the Adjudicator there, but you know, it's from that Warbond. Anyways, so obviously, yes, grenade pistol. This is great for just destructive damage. It's also not bad at chaff clear too. You know, it does have that one-shot grenade, but you know, hey, it gets the job done. And then speaking of grenades, you can go with any of the impact grenades or even the fuse ones as far as like the incendiary, the regular grenade. I've actually been having a lot of fun with that one, but always a solid choice, especially for a build like this, is the thermite grenade. That is the one that comes with the Warbond. It's just, if you don't like that one, obviously, it's not a big deal. But the thermite I do think is especially useful for the automatons and then the bugs, not so much on the illuminated side. So you do have like a little wiggle room and some options with that. Armor wise, fortified, we're doing a lot of explosive damage. That armor set gives you, again, explosive damage resistance. Another option I think is actually the urban siege that we got from the last Warbond. Just gives you more primary weapon ammo, also gives your stratagem weapons, if they do have like a clip, gives those more ammo as well. I think that armor kit is very solid overall. And then boosters, as usual, that's just fill in as whatever your team needs. So let's go ahead and move on to the stratagem section. So for the stratagems, the first one is the stratagem weapon. We're going with the grenade launcher. The grenade launcher, I haven't made a build around the grenade launcher yet, and today is the day. This thing is a really good stratagem weapon. It's kind of like an all-rounder, jack of all trades, at basically clearing most heavy and then down, so medium chaff and then light chaff. It does a really good job at just wiping the floor. You don't exactly need to spam this thing. I know I'll see like a lot of people just unloading with this thing, but you don't really need to do that with the grenade launcher. It gets the job done if you just carefully take your shots. Unless it's like a massive target, then yeah, you just unload into that. But overall, this is a very solid stratagem weapon, and it kills basically, I would say, 80% of every faction's like enemy pool. So it's a really good stratagem weapon. Now, next we're going to pair the grenade launcher with the supply backpack. So that way you're using your grenade launcher almost like a primary weapon if you want to. But these two pair really well together because even with the Urban Siege armor perk that gives you more ammunition, you only get like 4 mags of grenade launcher rounds. So pairing this with the supply backpack means you can just always be on the go and you don't really need to scavenge for anything. This is a highly mobile build overall. And so for our first stratagem pick here, because we have the grenade launcher and a lot of these explosive weapons, our only real way to deal with, say, massive targets at the moment is the thermite grenade, which, you know, it's not a bad choice. It's just there's a good chance you're going to die running in there, especially if they're like covered in a bunch of like chaff. So the first pick we're going to go with here is the Rocket Sentry. Now this Rocket Sentry is a really solid pick for just taking out like a field of massive or heavy targets. The only thing you got to do is protect this thing and then it'll do the rest. But if you really don't like sentries, then the 500 kg Eagle Airstrike, I mean, it doesn't get like a bigger explosion than that. The thing is great for taking out massive and heavy targets, so that's an option as well. But if you're okay with the Rocket Sentry, I would then pair the Rocket Sentry with something like the Rocket Pods. You do get a lot of these charges, you like 3 with the upgrade. And the Rocket Pods are very like solid. I don't see a lot of people talking about it much. I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but hey, for this theme and this build, I think the Rocket Pods fit pretty well. And so for like a last flex pick, obviously, one of the barrages always works out pretty well. Now, the napalm would be like a go-to recommendation, but that's more like on the fire side, and we want to be on more of the explosive side. So I would stick to one of the other barrages, especially against the bots. I think if the bots taking a barrage is almost like mandatory. So we'll talk a little bit more of that in a second here. So those are kind of like my stratagem picks. So let's move on to the overview section and we'll kind of break down each faction and like what I would pick, like tailor pick for each one of them. So now we're in the overview section. How would I play against like each of the factions with this build, with this kit? Let's first start off with those pesky bots. I still find them so fucking annoying. So with the bots, I would just keep everything obviously in the kit. For the weapon, I would actually probably go with the crossbow. I think that's really good against the bots just because you two-shot all the devastators essentially. So that's my pick for the primary there. Everything else I just said, yeah, the same. Now stratagem wise, obviously, yeah, grenade launcher, keep that, supply backpack, keep that, and I think it's mandatory to take one of the barrages just because the bots have like their fortifications and the barrages are really good at basically softening them up. Which barrage you want to take, kind of up to you. But I think they all do a pretty good job. Again, I would stay away from the napalm just because that really doesn't fit the theme of the build. And then like basically another use for the barrage is when the bots kind of like spiral and snowball out of control with their spawns and their dropships. So barrage does a pretty good job of cleaning those up as well, at least like weakening them, like assisting and basically taking them out. So that basically has like 2 uses versus the bots. The other pick I would make, I wouldn't take the rocket pods versus the bots. I don't think there's that many targets that it's like really that crucial against. I would take the 500 kg. Or if you don't want to take an Eagle Airstrike, I think actually the Rocket Sentry is really good for that too. But again, Rocket Sentry, you kind of got to protect. And then for the bugs for the Terminids, primary weapon wise, this really just comes up to you, personal preference. Like for the crossbow for the bots, I think is like a no-brainer, or maybe the Eruptor. Adjudicator is really not my favorite, but for the bugs, let me think about this one for a second. I do tend to lean more on the conventional weapon side, especially with like ARs and stuff. So I would probably take the Adjudicator for the bugs or the crossbow. I don't really like taking the Eruptor too much versus the bugs, so I would go with one of those. And as far as your stratagems, again, always keeping the grenade launcher, always keeping the supply backpack. I would go with the Rocket Sentry just because I think they do a really good job at taking out Bile Titans. And then for the last pick there, I would take the Rocket Pods. I think the Rocket Pods and the grenade launcher actually pair really well together, and they will dunk on Chargers and Bile Titans. So I think those pair really well together. Impalers, yeah, the grenade launcher is like the goat at destroying them. Just really quick, you hit them at once they dig their head in at the crown of their head, just hit that a couple times with the grenade launcher, and boom, they're down. Grenade launcher is really good against Impalers. But yeah, that Rocket Pod combo with the grenade launcher, really good at killing basically everything else on the Terminid side. And real quick, of course, these recommendations, you don't have to pick the exact ones that I have. You know, if you want the kg or the 500 kg over the rocket pods, you know, feel free to use that. Now on the squid side, I definitely like using the Adjudicator more. Maybe it's just because of zombies. Maybe it's just because of like popping heads off, but I definitely like having a machine gun or an AR for them. And then for the 2 stratagems that I would pick, probably the 500 kg. It does a pretty good job at killing basically packs of the squids, especially when you have like a harvester or multiple harvesters, and then you have the elevated overseers flying around. The 500 kg just like nukes them all, and it's a really satisfying feeling. Other than that, I would actually take the rocket sentry with this as well. The rocket sentry, you just plop it down in the middle of the street and just watch it go to town on a harvester. That's a really satisfying feeling. Because when it comes to the rest of the squid like forces, the grenade launcher does an excellent job at taking them out. And then like your secondary and your grenades, they're almost like redundant at that point. That's why I kind of mentioned at the beginning when we were talking about the grenades initially, I would take maybe one of the fire grenades. I would take them here against the squids just because having the thermite grenade, you just would maybe use it on a harvester, and I think you can get the harvesters down easier ways. So just know that's why I kind of like mentioned that flex pick there. I do think overall the grenade pistol, you just got to keep it. It's just such a cool weapon, and it feels good to pull out and just like dunk on like 8 or 9 like boatless or something like that. It's a fun weapon. So overall, that's the build. That's basically my picks for each of the factions and like kind of the flex choices I would make for that, you know, demolition, explosive experts kind of like gameplay style. So now we can kind of move on to the state of the galaxy. So state of the galaxy, yeah, Helldivers live action movie. I'd be pretty excited about that. Not all Sony movies are bad, everybody, but why not give them a shot? It depends on who the creative leads are for that, but you know, I'm not opposed to it. I think having something like a well done Starship Troopers movie in like modern era is not a bad thing. I would watch it. Is there a good chance it'll be an absolute shit show and bad? Probably. I mean, nobody's been able to kind of like capture that Starship Troopers one movie in a bottle since the original. So they've tried, but they really haven't hit that mark like, again, the first movie did. And then other than that, yeah, that's basically the video, guys. At the little like intros, I forgot to mention really at the beginning. For those intros and stuff, I usually just pick people who, I put their names down, but I usually just pick people who either I see comment a lot, or maybe they have a comment that I really like. So those are the kind of like the ways I pick the names. So, you know, if you want your name to be out there, just have a really cool comment or something like that. I do read every comment. I try, if I have something to say, I will reply back. Sometimes if I just heart or like something and I can't think of anything, that's not on you. It's just I'm too dumb to think of something like clever to say, essentially. But anyways, that's the video. I will have another one out for later this week, and then yeah, I guess I'll see you guys for that one. Peace and take care.